It's time for this week's PrairieCast.
This week's PrairieCast is brought to you by Delta Dental of Iowa, who reminds you that you don't have to work for a big company to get big benefits. Delta Dental offers a dental plan to fit your needs, whether it is a single policy, one for your family, or one for the team at your startup. Visit deltadentalia.com to learn more about your many plan options. So I missed the first line. Welcome to PrairieCast, episode 75, February 21st, 2012. We're right on track now. So as I was saying there, Chris Burns, West Des Moines Bay Shift. Chris, welcome back to the show.
Thank you.
It's been a while since we've had you on.
It was show 36.
Show 36. Oh,
yes.
Nice.
Thanks for having me back.
You knew that.
I appreciate that.
And Jimmy, the first time that we've had you on the show, you are Skyping in from Omaha today, or outside of Omaha, if I caught the conversation as we...
Actually in Omaha at the VoterTide office, about 120th and Center.
Oh, very good.
Yep.
Before we jump into the topics, I do want to mention that tickets are on sale for two Des Moines events that a lot of people in this audience will be interested in. The first is the Iowa Creativity Summit, which is coming up on March 1st. Go to iowacreativity.com to learn more about that. And the second is Startup Weekend Des Moines, which is actually the very next day after the Creativity Summit. Those tickets are available at dsm.startupweekend.com. So everybody that's interested, please take a look at those two. Any other announcements at the top of the show I'm missing?
No, I think you got it covered.
All right, very good. Well, the first topic I do want to talk about today is actually the reason we asked Jimmy on, because VoterTide has had some interesting news lately, and so we'll just throw it right to you, Jimmy. And why don't you tell us what VoterTide is and what it is you guys have been working on?
Yeah, VoterTide basically is a social media analytics platform for the political arena. We began about 3 years ago working on a product called Rockdex, and what Rockdex did was we gather information on song plays, video plays, tweets on Twitter, blog posts, and all that encompasses a band's kind of social media strategy. And that actually still runs Rockdex on the music side of things. But in the spring of last year, basically, we kind of thought about doing it for politics. 2012 is going to be a huge race, of course, especially looking back at what happened in 2008 with Obama and the use of social media and really getting the grassroots stuff going online. And the way that we built the VoterTide engine, Rockdex engine, Beyond, I guess is the official title of it, was that we can handle and track basically any type of data at all in the social space. And we'd had a lot of people ask us to do things like, track different brands, track, just what people are talking about in the social area. But we really focused on tracking in certain verticals. So first there was music, and now we're doing politics. And we actually have some sports clients on right now. We have the Kansas City Chiefs, who use a product every day. We just signed the Kansas City Motor Speedway. So I guess that's a brief history of the company. But more what the product does is it's a dashboard in a way for politicians, campaigns, political action committees, different advocacy groups to basically log into our system throughout the day and find out in real time what the buzz online is. So instead of having to go to search.twitter.com and comb through 1,000 tweets about Mitt Romney, we'll say, here's the tweets that were most retweeted, here's ones that were, noticed the most, talked about the most, here's articles people shared, and really to help the campaigns and candidates save tons and tons of time throughout their day.
Very nice. And just so I heard you correctly, it's one platform, you're just rolling it out into two separate companies, Rockdex and VoterTide?
It's one platform, but we're specializing different pieces of code for different areas. So for music, there's a lot of focus on the SoundCloud with songs being played, individual tracks. Whereas in politics, we came up with something called the Tide Score, which is has a much deeper political focus than the music side of things.
Okay, and those two, the separate code base, but two completely different companies as well. Just
same parent company.
Same parent company.
The parent company is Beyond Measure LLC. We formed that back about 2 years ago when Invest Nebraska made a seed investment in the company back when we won the Invest Nebraska business plan pitch.
Okay. Very interesting. Chris, we didn't talk a whole lot about Shift at the beginning, but you guys are applications developers too. Have you had a chance to take a look at what they're building with VoterTide?
Absolutely. Took a look at and really impressed by the platform and with software as a service. And I think it's really neat with the different verticals it can reach. I know we have a client right now who could really use that platform. It's .org that we built a website for, and basically it's a year-long campaign where a truck drives around the whole United States raising awareness about how bad the roads are and bridges and infrastructure. And there's a huge political piece to it, and it has a GPS on the truck that tracks every mile and has some good hook-ins to get a hold of your congressman or congresswoman. So I think that would be a good platform or a good vertical for them to use on Road Connection.
Yeah, absolutely. How have politicians responded to this? I mean, I think you do have clients now that are actually actively using it. How is what has their response been?
It's been good. It's been heavily on the right side of the aisle. It's been very conservative customer base. I mean, we've reached out to both the right and the left. It just seems that the adoption levels have been a lot quicker with the Republicans. As far as the time savings tool, it's been huge. I mean, people from chiefs of staffs in the actual candidate's office in D.C. or people who are managing a campaign just see it as a way to save tons of time. And also, with the VoterTide alerts tool, we can send text messages or emails to somebody's phone or to their email address as soon as we catch news starting to break online. So in D.C., a lot of people are very much into Google Alerts, so we're kind of not doing the exact same thing as Google Alerts, but we're sending messages to people as soon as we notice there's news breaking online. So it helps them kind of get in front of things before it either gets out of control or so that they can push a message further forward.
And I assume that's all automated, so
yeah.
What are your thoughts, Andy?
I think this looks great. And you're pulling data all the way down to like the city level, aren't you?
Mm-hmm. Yep. So we have people, of course, presidential candidates, seated candidates in Congress and in Senate. We have governors, we have mayors, we have Heath Mello from Gretna, Nebraska as well, tracking on a state level. And we're working on getting people as far down as, city council members, public utilities, people who are running for, the boards of directors there. So it's usable by anybody who has a social media presence. And if you don't have a presence and you're running for some kind of political office or you're seated right now, you might be making a mistake.
Sure. Does the Tide score ever get compared to like the Clout score and
a lot, yeah.
Okay.
Yep, quite a bit. The Tide score, that's the piece that we developed specifically for politics. And the way that works is we have another program here named Matt. And Matt, it was a computer engineering major, but he also majored in statistical analysis in college. So he's the perfect guy to have for a project like this. But what we do is we take all the social media activity for candidates in a single race. So we'll say Nebraska District 1. We'll say, how quickly are these people gaining fans on Facebook, gaining fans on Twitter? How often are they being tweeted about? Articles that are written about them, how many times are they being shared in the social space? And we'll take all that data and compare the score to everybody else in the same race. So it's, say, with the Nebraska Senate race here, it was John Bruning and Stenberg and Nelson all being compared to each other. So it's not like with Clout where Jimmy Winter's being compared to Nick Carl's being compared to Shannon down to KC. It's actually people in the same race, because if you take John Bruning's social media activity and you were to compare it to somebody like Barack Obama, I mean, he's just going to completely crush him. But it makes a lot more sense when it's on kind of a localized level in the race that's important to them at the moment.
Yeah, and I think the Clout score has kind of suffered from people not really understanding what it means or what it means relative to that. So I think that's an interesting way to point out. What's the feedback that you hear from the candidates as far as their Tide score? Like, do they see that as an adequate measurement, or are they adjusting their campaign strategies based on what they see?
I think it's an adequate measurement. We're not taking into account sentiment right now, so if it's negative press or if it's positive press, it's still going to apply to the overall Tide score. But they do like to see, is there any such thing as bad press? There is, but if you're a small candidate and you get some bad press, but your name's getting out there and you're getting a lot more exposure and awareness is a big thing that's talked about in politics. It's a great metric to see how you are, ranking compared to others in the race. So, pretty good feedback.
It's kind of all PR is good PR, or whatever that statement is. Yeah.
So how often do the Tides update? I mean, I think I've noticed it update in the last day since I checked it out yesterday.
Mm-hmm. On the public consumer side of VoterTide, that Tide score is updated every 24 hours. Okay. And we can get it down to 2 or 3 hour basis. But right now, as the election ramps up, there's some activity, but not a ton of activity that would cause a big spike or kind of a change in Tide score. So we think the 24-hour period is pretty good.
What's the future look like for VoterTide? You said the timing kind of did correlate with 2012 being a big campaign year. As that's kind of swinging, and obviously the Democratic side is locked down. The Republican side is hopefully going to be locked down, at some point in the near future. What do you kind of see? Like, is it become a very seasonal product, or is it something that people maintain all the way through the campaign versus their other candidate?
I've been asked this by every investor that we pitched on this thing, and the reason right now we're starting with politicians and people who are seated and running the campaigns is because it's the low-hanging fruit right now. It's what's hot on the mind. It's what people are very interested in. So we're tracking that, but we're also tracking things like data for the movie industry, or we're tracking different issues, be it gun control or be it horse slaughter is a big one right now. And issues are never going to go away. There's always going to be some new issue popping up. It could be the pipeline this week, and it's going to be something totally different 6 months from now. So if we can track that issue data throughout time, that's information that we can then offer to the lobbyists, to the political action committees, to different political organizations, be it they're for a topic, they're against a topic. But if they're able to use a VoterTide product and say, we're going to push an issue to get aluminum cans, taken out of stores and made all plastic, something like that, they can find out which politicians are associated to those different issues, which ones are for it, which ones are against it, and kind of see how that trends over time. And you can say the issue of 10 pop cans or aluminum pop cans, how has that changed over time and been a share of the overall national voice compared to all these other topics? So that's kind of like a tide score for issues in a way.
Yeah, and that obviously, as you said, is always going to be there. And you just reminded me that you guys did a guest post for us on kind of what the local candidates were saying about SOPA and PIPA at the time. Was that, I assume, using the tide score on those issues?
Yep. It was interesting. Almost every single seated person in Congress gained Twitter followers and Facebook followers on that. I think it was Wednesday, January 23rd, if I'm correct. And so they all gained, but nobody lost afterwards. Nobody said, I'm going to like this guy for one day, and then tomorrow, after I've made my post on his wall about SOPA PIPA, I'm gonna unfriend him or unfollow him. They actually stuck with it. So, in a way, the press, be it good or bad, at least opened up these congressmen to a lot more ears, that are listening to him and following him on those sites.
Yeah, very interesting. Other thoughts, Chris?
My thoughts are if you have data and you can uncover hidden trends or display trends that are maybe there that but it's hard to explain. So through the dashboard or the infographic reports, you're allowed to tell a story around the data, and that's kind of what it's about right now, is taking vast amounts of large data or small data and being able to tell a story that pertains to the context you're trying to get through to your
that's exactly right. And also, once you have that data, as you accumulate more and more and more, you can go back and analyze that data, and you can find out that if I make this type of tweet, or if I appear on this TV show, or historically if I'm on Meet the Press, here's a reaction that you normally get. If you're working on different media campaigns to get a message out, you can say, well, if it's a message that's highly left-wing, we got to be on these TV shows because it drives the discussions. And if it's on the right-wing, we got to be on these TV shows because not only does it reach a traditional media space, be it TV and radio, but that message then propels out into the social media area as well. Just, the more data, the better, because storage is cheap and you can always do a lot of really great analysis on it down the line.
So are you guys going back in history, or is it just kind of from here on out you're tracking?
We have everybody in Congress added right now. We have most governors added right now. We added them in the past last year around July and August. So we have a lot of historical data in there. But there are ways we're looking into to find, maybe a candidate announces tomorrow. We can add some other data and start tracking them then. But we want to find ways to get some of that historical data to work with so they get immediate use and value from the product.
Well, our famous Twitterific senator in this state is Mr. Grassley. Any insights on Grassley and some of the positives and negatives that his use of social media has had for his?
I could log in and take a look real fast.
Oh, okay.
But off the top of my head, I mean, nothing that jumps out immediately. But he uses it a lot. I mean, he's very active on it compared to a lot of other people who are seated right now.
Yeah, he absolutely is, and it's funny to kind of watch him. I have a friend that works for one of his offices and said that it absolutely is him. Like, he is the one in the field doing that, and he's kind of famous for his misspellings, and but also, I mean, that's always been his thing, is he visits every county in the state, and he's very accessible. Whether you agree with his politics or not, maybe a little different, but the guy is certainly out there. So, so interesting points there, and I did note that I don't remember if it was Danny or Michael that wrote the last story on VoterTide, but there was some thoughts there that this investment that you guys have taken on will fuel a future DC office. Can you tell us any more about that?
Yeah, we actually already hired a PR person in DC, and fortunately, her dad or father-in-law is a seated congressman, so that's nothing that's going to hurt us. And we're also talking to several potential kind of sales directors out there, because while we've made a lot of connections out there, we've had a lot of introductions. Somebody who's kind of lived in DC and experienced a DC sales lifestyle, that's kind of the person we're looking to bring on board right now. So that'll probably happen within the next 4 to 6 weeks. So we'll have 2 people out there, and then we have, let's see here, 7 here in the Omaha office, and we have 1 down in Kansas City. So it's great. I mean, the investment is helping tremendously with more developers and designers, just because for a long time it was just Matt and I doing all the development, and with some more people on board to help us with that, it's tremendous.
Sure. And have you shared how much the investment was?
No, I've not.
Okay.
It was a significant amount.
Significant amount.
Yeah.
All right.
We're able to hire several people full time, if that makes. I don't know.
Yeah, we'll add that.
Do marketing.
Crunch the numbers and come up with it with ourselves. No, very good. Well, guys, any other questions on VoterTide before we move on?
I don't think so.
Yeah, very interesting company, and great timing with what's going on this year. We'll be sure and watch that throughout the
Thanks for having me.
The rest of the year for sure. So I do want to next give a word of thanks to Delta Dental of Iowa, who is our sponsor for today's episode. Take care of your smile. Rely on a company you can trust. Fact is, more Iowans trust their smiles to Delta Dental. Whether you're looking for a dental policy for you, your family, or your startup, visit deltadentalia.com to learn more about your many plan options. All right. Thank you, Delta Dental. Next up is our Fast Four segment, and we're going to try something different again today. I think we've changed this a little bit every week, maybe, with what's going on. But still going to do the 4 topics. I'm going to ask all of you the same question, get your opinion, your answer to the question. But instead of saying whether you're right or wrong, which is what I've done in past weeks and been told is a little judgmentally, I'm going to award points of the answers. And Andy's going to keep track of the points and tell us who is the winner of the day.
May or may not cheat.
He may or may not cheat because he's keeping track of himself, too. All right. Are you guys ready for the Fast Four?
I'm ready.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. First question. AgLocal, a Kansas City-based startup that connects independent farmers and producers with the demands of local business and consumer, was chosen to participate in the 2nd annual class of the New Me Accelerator in San Francisco. Here's the question. Will AgLocal's participation start a trend among Silicon Prairie startups joining accelerators on the coast? Andy, we'll start with you since you've done this before.
I'd say no, because I think we're getting our own accelerators popping up that's going to try to keep these people around here.
Very good. Jimmy, your thoughts?
I don't know if it's going to start a trend, because we're going to need a lot more startups to actually, have some kind of huge shift to going to those incubators. But is it the right thing to do? If you would have asked me a year and a half ago, I would say, no way, got to stay in the Midwest, got to be here permanently. But if you're able to go work at Y Combinator or Techstars or one of the big different incubators on a coast for only 4 months, 6 months, you might as well try it out, because I think you could learn a lot of stuff that you can't learn here quite yet without the kind of incubator scene that's starting to grow, but it still has a ways to go. So a huge trend, no, but it might open more people up to looking at that as a viable option.
All right, Chris, your
10
thoughts?
points.
I'd say no. I don't think it's going to be a trend. I don't think it's going to participate, or make, startups go out to the coast. I think, for your example that you had, that accelerator matched pretty specifically their needs.
Right.
And I think as you look at each accelerator, they have different mission statements, different mentors on board. And I think really the startups are getting really sophisticated in what we've seen with Dwell and matching their needs as a business, their business plan, their other investors with the new investors. And I think people are starting to look at that very systemically and really make the best choice. before where you can't just follow the money, go where the money is. Now where I think, these startups are thinking for, their business plan is 5 years, 10 years, So I think, no, I don't think so.
All right, I would agree with you. I think the answer is likely no, but I do like everybody's thoughts on this as far as opening up people's eyes to it and what it can do. And I was trying to keep the question a little concise, so I left out the part like it is very specifically suited to the people behind Ag Local, the New Me Accelerator position. So let's go ahead and award points. I'm going to say let's give Chris 3 points. We'll give Jimmy 2, and Andy, you'll get 1 because that's the way I see it. All right, second question. Web Design Studio, What Cheer, the group behind the iliveinOmaha.com crowdsourced project listing, the I Live in Omaha campaign, did a crowdsourced project listing all the reasons people choose to live in that city. They've now launched a Valentine's Day offshoot called iloveinomaha.com, allowing people to upload a photo of themselves and their sweetheart and a quick description of why they love in Omaha. It received over 600 submissions, and the question is, are grassroots efforts from private individuals like this more likely to raise the awareness about their city? Are they more or less effective than the ones that the city puts on themselves? And let's start with Jimmy this time, since you're in Omaha.
I think they're absolutely more effective. If you look at the grassroots things that began here, like, Big Omaha versus the Young Professional Summit, both, good events, but it just seems like Big Omaha has much more buzz organically and a lot more growth. And also, I don't want to bash any city organizations, but if you look at, a 2 or 3 person startup putting out a product, they're going to pour their heart and soul into it. They don't have tons to lose. If you're a city organization, you've got a lot of overhead. You've got a lot of people. It could be a case where too many cooks are spoiling it. So I'm going to say absolutely on the private companies and individuals.
Chris, your thoughts?
I'd say it's part of the bigger picture. I did a Google search before I came, and I grew up in Omaha also. So I did a Google search of why I live in Omaha, and I Love in Omaha was one of the top hits organically. And then I noticed ways down, a Tumblr blog that's called Why I Live in Omaha. So it was actually a personal journey of why people love the city of Omaha. Nothing to do with the other. And I saw 3 or 4 other things spawn that. So definitely agree that social organic grows off of that. But I think, once again, thinking very systemically, you need to really get yourself tied into the economic development of where you live. I know Joe Olson from Phenom Blue had a really good talk a while back when he came here and talked about how his eyes opened up when he went and started really doing things within the economic development community on the government side. But also I think the government, Douglas County is learning from that side. I saw another website that's called, it had to do with wellness. It was totally different. It didn't look like a city website. It was totally branded. It was very boutique, looked really great. But at the end of the day, it was a city initiative. Mm-hmm. So I think, once again, there's energy going back and forth. But I think definitely, so I guess I'm sitting on the fence in that one. But
all right, fair enough.
I'd say those grassroots efforts are definitely more effective. They seem more genuine and organic, and I think overall they get a better response.
Very good. All right, I would agree that they are more effective. So I'm going to give 3 points to Jimmy this time, 2 points to Andy, and then you can't be on the fence and get points. So 1 point to Chris. Next up, the 4th iteration of Startup Weekend Des Moines is coming to this city March 2nd through 4th. And register at dsm.startupweekend.org.
Yes.
Did I get corrected on that? All right. So Startup Weekend is coming March 2nd through 4th. To my knowledge, 3 startups born at last year's event, almost a year ago, are still functioning today. When we look back a year from now, do you think we'll see more or less in operation? And we'll start with you this time, Chris.
Well, I'm going to say more, just because startup cities around. We have some really good role models in far startups. Getting seed money and then getting first round, second round. The veterans of Startup Weekend will probably come back and help mentor. I know Shift, we've been involved in that for the last 2 or 3 years, so I know, and we plan to be involved again this year. So I definitely think if there's good work ethic, positive energy, people coming out there with a good team, I think there'll definitely be more startups.
Yeah, when we did our prediction show right after the new year, I said that Startup Weekend Des Moines would blow out the entire Silicon Prairie's attendance for Startup Weekend. So I think as a result of more people there, we're going to see more companies last longer.
All right, Jimmy, your thoughts?
Absolutely. I mean, people are starting to hear stories from different companies that are doing well. I mean, Dwala, Zarly, companies like that, where I think more people who might traditionally get a job at some large company, you know, 9 to 5 thing, they see that it's a feasible option now, and it's, you know, a legitimate path for a career. So yes.
All right, I would agree. The answer is yes as well. And Chris, I really like your point this time, so I'll give you 3 points. And I had not thought about that. The infrastructure here is greater this year than it was with things like Startup City. So I think that's a great point. Jimmy, yours as well. Actually, let's give Jimmy 2 points, and Andy, you get 1 this time. I have a feeling we might. No, okay. I was pretty sure we were all going to add up to the same number at the end. But okay, so here we go. The last question. Forbes.com wrote this week that the number 4 reason for Pinterest success is that it appeals to the Silicon Prairie. Although it's based in Palo Alto, California, Pinterest founder Ben Silverman is from Iowa. The first people to understand the website were mostly women in Des Moines, then Minneapolis, then Houston and Chicago. To this day, the Midwest and Iowa in particular are disproportionately represented given the population amongst our user base, says Silverman to Forbes. Do you agree that its appeal to the Silicon Prairie is a major factor in Pinterest's success? I think it's probably your turn to start first.
I say no. I think the success is because it's a great product. Well designed, everything works well, and I think that's the reason for the growth.
Okay, Jimmy?
It doesn't hurt. I mean, but I guess I'd like to know more about why did people in Des Moines get it first, and then people in Minneapolis, then Houston. Was it because invites went out there first, just because of the location of the founder? But does it help that it appeals to everybody? Absolutely. It's just got to be a super easy to use product.
I would say yes. I think if you're having a conversation of whether a product is easy to use, you've lost it. I mean, the technology can never get in the way. The product just has to work and has to be very easy. The UI has to be great, has to be very intuitive. With Ben coming back, maybe starting opening it with friends and family, and in Des Moines and in the Midwest, you're not 9 degrees of separation, you're 2 degrees of separation from everybody's social streams. So I think maybe from there it started out, and you can see maybe we need an infographic on where it started from here, went to Minneapolis, another major hub, moves over to Omaha, and then maybe down to Houston. So once again, still in the Midwest. So I think if it actually started on the coast, we would have seen reverse. So for me, the product being easy, that's a given. I mean, once again, if you ever talk about a product being easy to use, then it should be. That should be never the conversation. It should just be a baseline.
That's a good point. Chris, you get the 3 points for this one. Jimmy, to answer your question, I think what Ben said to us at Think Iowa, if I remember correctly, is he sent it to everybody he knew. It was just his friends and family in the Midwest took to it much sooner because he was from here. So he sent it to people in different places, but the people here in the Midwest, for whatever reason, grabbed onto it sooner. I do think there's a greater point maybe of what he was saying of it's not a kind of technical geek type of tool where any man can use Pinterest and find, or woman can use Pinterest and find value in it, as opposed to somebody that's highly technical and only likes a product for certain flashy reasons, that type of thing.
Right.
So.
One of our clients, Meredith, Better Homes and Gardens.
Yeah.
Very Pinterest oriented. I mean, you see a lot of those type of visuals within that. When we were working on the project with Meredith last year with Better Homes and Gardens, you couldn't walk the hallways without hearing about Pinterest. And they have a huge footprint in New York. So once again, I think it started here and kind of moved out from there. So
yeah,
kind of the hub and spoke.
So you said no on that one. Jimmy, did you say yes or no, or were you kind of bored?
I had a non-answer, I think. It was just a terrible answer. We'll say yes.
We'll say yes?
Yes.
Okay, so we'll give... you were borderline, so Andy, you get the 2 points, Jimmy gets 1. And so who is our first...
Is that?
So less is no borderline.
Chris wins.
Chris wins.
10 to 8 to 6.
10 to 8 to 6. All right. So let us know how you feel about the points game as part of PrairieCast.
I'm never coming back here.
we will be smoother with it in the future, but that was kind of fun. Fast forward. So official winner, Chris, congratulations.
Oh,
you get nothing. Really. I don't have a prize prepared, but we'll have to do that for the next time too.
Awesome.
All right, moving on to our next topic this week. Two Silicon Prairie startups made it into Fast Company's top 10 most innovative companies list in their respective industries. Came out this past week. Des Moines-based Dewala came in at number 8 on the finance list, and Kansas City's Zarley took honors at number 7 in the web/internet category. Chris, I'll start with you. Do you agree with these rankings for these two companies?
Absolutely. Huge disruptors within those industries. And, once again, disruptor doesn't mean a bad thing in this case. So thinking about how to, provide products and services in a different manner, really coming at a very historical economic, engine in a totally different way, and I think maybe the second part of your question is, will they be, who should be there? I think Dwala will be there again because, once again, and I'm a little biased because we work with Dwala, but, obviously geolocation, peer-to-peer payment systems. Now they have a whole suite of bank tools. Now they have micro instant lending. I don't think they are going to be around for the short term. I think they have a really good game plan, and I think they're going to be disrupting on many levels. When NFC starts hitting and more momentum, a digital wallet, I'm sure those guys will be right in the conversation. So once again, I think they'll be there on that list again.
Yeah, and that's really interesting. This is not the type of list where you're on once and then you're excluded. Companies come back again. I was looking back through the last several years of this, and several of the same companies make the list every year. Companies like Amazon and Twitter, folks like that. So, Jimmy, what were your thoughts on these two companies making the list?
Very well deserved. I mean, it's a big pat on the back for the Midwest, and they'll continue to be on there. As far as other companies, I think Huddle is the coolest company, the coolest concept, and I mean the technology is so innovative that we'll definitely see them on that list in the future.
Yeah, that's a great point. We were kind of talking about. Do you have some other companies, Andy?
They stole mine.
Huddle?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Huddle too, and
I had Huddle had a little sub note too.
Yeah,
they should be next in line if there is a line.
Yeah, and I'm not sure exactly. I couldn't find any criteria of how companies are selected, so it's a little behind the scenes. Or it may just be the companies they see written about the most, or that type of thing. But the one that I thought might be interesting to be on the list, really thinking about companies that will make an impact, and I think Huddle is one in their industry for sure has made an impact. But like Mind Mixer as well in Omaha is one that I really like. They do the public interaction for cities, that type of thing. So almost goes back to what we were talking about with the I Love in Omaha campaign. It's a very different take on interacting with your citizens if you're a city. Or they've recently done 2 projects in Des Moines. I think the NPO's project as well as the City of Des Moines project. So it's really interesting to look at that. And I could see people really getting behind that. The problem for notoriety-wise with them is that it's not really billed as a Mind Mixer project. It's kind of set up to mimic whatever city site they're on, so you don't know that's what you're using. It's hard to have that kind of top-of-mind thing with what Mind Mixer's doing, but I really like the product they have. Others that were on the list this year that of local note, Pinterest was on the list. It was actually in the web and internet category behind Zarly. And obviously we've been talking about Ben. Also, big Omaha alumni, Neil Blumenthal with his Warby Parker company made the list, I think in retail. Anybody surprise you that was on the list that you didn't expect to see? Talking about the bigger national companies?
No, it looked like the standard set of companies. I mean, not to sidetrack, but sub-question, do you guys put a lot of value in these kind of articles? Because it seems like every week there's like a new list out, like Forbes does their lists, and it's always just like Des Moines top 5 city for most happy people type things. Do you guys see any value in these kind of lists, or is it just kind of link bait, headline type stuff?
I have an opinion, but I'll let Jimmy answer first.
I think it's good for PR.
Yeah.
But a lot of it's link bait. I mean, so like 5 years ago, I was on Business Week's top 25 under 25 list. I think just because I got more votes, honestly. I don't think there was any, real rhyme or reason behind it. And I'm sure there's a lot more talented young people out there who easily could have taken my spot. But I think a lot of it's link bait.
Yeah. Chris, your thoughts?
Once again, I think link bait, but I think whoever's the darling at the moment, who's getting enough press. I think once again it goes back to kind of the accelerator question. The list. I mean, there's lists for everything: colleges, majors, you name it. So I don't put a lot of stock into that. But
yeah, I mean, it's not just pure link bait and just draw 10 names out of a hat. You've got to have a cool product and a cool company, and you have to merit being on there. But as the long-term meeting, I guess that's up for discussion.
Well, if you want to really understand the discussion, go read the comments.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You'll see all the discussion going on there. So
it's a very good point. The I think you're right. I think that they are link bait. I think you would rather have these things than not.
Right.
So
as the companies, for sure.
As the company, so it's good when you do that. I think a lot of times you have to look at the source of the list. So I guess I hadn't thought about it this way, but it's really just a huge list post, right?
Right.
This 50 companies and then the top 10 by industry. But yeah, I mean, any of the companies that get on there, I'm sure that is useful for them,
Right.
and you'd rather
Yeah.
be on there than not included. So Fast Company is an interesting one. Forbes would be one I'd follow. You know, the random blogs or whatever that do them, it's less interesting to me. And yeah, Des Moines tends to get on these lists a lot. As far as like the city and how great it is to live here and things. I'm sure Omaha does as well. I just don't notice them as often as they come up. And I don't know what that necessarily means.
Right.
But you'd certainly rather talk about
If it sparks the conversation with somebody, and then maybe they become a potential client or mentor or partner,
Yeah.
then it's done its job.
Oh yeah, I think it's gold for the companies that get listed. I mean, Apple doesn't care, but for Dwala, this is big type stuff. So
Absolutely.
I was actually listening to a Bill Simmons, Chuck Klosterman conversation on Bill Simmons' Grantland podcast the other day, and he was talking about they were talking about whether or not awards shows mean anything, like the Grammys and things like that. And Simmons' point, which I think applies to these lists as well, is there are only so many ways to think about time and like what happened in a year.
right.
And like he was saying, award shows are a positive because you can say like, oh, that was the year that, you know, Adele won everything, and you can think back on that year, and that's the way you can encapsulate it. I think lists like this would be like, that's the year when Dwala hit, or that's the year when Zara. Like, it's a way to look back on a year of content in the technology industry or in whoever's making the list, as long as you trust the source. And I think Fast Company is a pretty decent one. Looking back through the list at past years, it's really kind of interesting to see who's there. You know, companies like Hulu, Kayak, Nintendo have been on this list in the past. None of those are on the list this year, and I think that shows that we're kind of past where those companies have highlighted.
Right.
They may come up again, but this wasn't the year for any of those type of companies.
Right.
Yeah. No, that's a good point.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you can take a look. One other thing I noticed on this list, this is the first time looking back a lot, is that they don't put people's rankings here. So if you look at the 2011 list, what is this, the 2011 list? Is that how they... So, okay, we'll say this is the 2012 list, looking back at 2011. If you look at the 2011 list, it says dropped 5 spots from last year, or, you know, gained 10. And there is that is not noticed, that it's not listed here. So I don't know if that's a UI, it's just the way they designed the page, or if they're trying to signal something with that.
Yeah. Be interesting to understand with their ranking system, like you said, and go from there.
Yeah. The other thing I noticed, lots of Union Square Ventures backed companies on this list.
See, that's
Wait.
Yeah.
They know how to pick them.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I don't know if one is the chicken and one is the egg, but you know, yeah, they're certainly well represented there. Danny says in the chat room that, of course, it is important to look at the publication. So Business Insider and Mashable do a lot of link type of these lists, whereas something like Fast Company probably doesn't.
Yeah.
And he also mentions there's a company on there called GoGo, which has investment from Open Air Equity Partners in Kansas City. Our guest last week, Thad, is the executive in residence there. So another local tie as well. All right. Any other thoughts on the Fast Company list?
Nope.
Of course, congratulations to everybody that is on the list. And actually, I think I saw there was one. Naked Pizza, I think, was on the list too. Robbie Vetrano, we missed them. So another Think Iowa alum whose company made the list. All right. Let's go ahead and start to wrap up the show, and our segment to wrap up is our favorite new segment, Andy's Stat of the Week. Andy, what is that stat?
Stat of the week is 1,000, which is the acres of land in Council Bluffs that that Google is planning on using to roll out an antenna farm. An antenna farm, that's right. Google's subsidiary, Google Fiber Inc. is seeking permission to place satellite antennas on land near its data center in Council Bluffs, Iowa. The antennas could be used to receive content feeds from broadcast networks that could be bundled with high-speed fiber optic service. So that is the stat of the week. Pretty interesting. They built that big data center in Council Bluffs, how many years ago was that? A few years ago?
Yeah.
And when they did that, they bought this extra 1,000 of acres of land to do this rollout. So it's pretty interesting.
But they're just now filing, right, for the FCC's permission to actually use it for this purpose.
Right. So they're going to, I don't know if they're going to launch their own satellites to handle this communication or if they're going to be piggybacking on someone else's. But it says the satellites would be used to provide analog and digital audio, data, and video services. So it's an interesting move, and one could speculate on Google's future using this kind of technology. And we've all seen like Google TV and things like that.
Speculate, yeah, do it.
Well, I think they're going after the living room. I mean, they're already controlling most of the content through YouTube. People are doing YouTube only productions. I mean, YouTube could become the content distribution channel. and Google's back-end satellite system could become the groundwork for that.
And as far as we know, is this the only area where they're doing this? Like,
That's the only thing I've seen on them.
so Google Fiber, Kansas City, now they're 3 hours up the road in Omaha, and it is the Google Fiber subsidiary doing this.
Yeah, yep.
It's really, this kind of broke on the national news, just yesterday?
Yeah,
I think I saw it on the
last
Verge,
night.
and really interesting. Jimmy, are you hearing anything about this in Omaha yet?
Just some, coverage on different blogs, things like that, but no coverage that I've noticed in like Omaha.com or anything like that yet. So,
It's
I mean, there was tons of coverage on the data center over there.
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
The new satellite stuff, I've not heard tons about it yet.
I just I haven't quite got through last week's This Week in Google podcast, but they had teased it at the top of the show.
Oh, did they?
They teased it as Omaha, interesting, not Council Bluffs, but they said that Google was
Close
bringing
enough.
this to
Really?
Omaha. So I don't know if that's a coastal look at the Midwest, or if they if early word got out differently than
Right.
what we heard.
Right.
Chris, you're an Omaha native.
Yeah.
Are you excited for this?
Yeah, it's just I did a bunch of reading on it, and everyone's got a different kind of slant on it. But I think obviously content is what it's about. Eyeballs, ads, exactly. I think they just. I would like to just understand the kind of nuts and bolts of it. That's kind of where I come from. It's just receiving dishes, right?
Yeah.
And what's analog anymore? I know digital broadcast on the airwaves. It's over the airwaves, but it's digital. I mean, I don't know what the analog means. So
Analog and Google Voice, all that kind of stuff runs
Gotcha.
over analog, so I don't know if that has anything to do with it.
big
But
proponent of Google Voice.
yeah, very, very.
I think
So
analog's
bring
a
in
prairie
other-
dog.
What's that?
I think analog's a prairie dog.
Analog is a
Exactly.
video.
So bringing all that content
Little
from a
analog back
dish,
there.
putting it into big pipes from Google.
Yeah.
So what happens when they go to a neighborhood and it's a Quest neighborhood? Is that the FCC filings that they're dealing with? Because I can't get FiOS in my neighborhood because it's a Quest neighborhood.
Right.
So what are they going to have, a boxing match and see who's the toughest, or what's going?
Probably. Yeah. Well, and there's the initiatives like Google Fiber where they're rolling that out, and I could see, again, speculation. Here's free fiber connection. Here's all your content for free, and we're going to wrap ads around it. And
Gotcha.
AdWords just turns into a multi-vertical juggernaut if it already isn't.
Right.
Interesting.
Huh.
Yeah.
That is interesting.
The other piece that I found interesting about this is like Google Fiber to Kansas City was much celebrated, right? It was this big contest who was going to get it. When they announced it, they put a big video out that this is coming, and this was more like just not hidden or anything, but it's not something that Google is touting that's going on.
Right. I think once we find out why they're doing this, I think there might be some fanfare around it. But this is someone watching FCC notices go through and obviously sees Google and thinks, well, something's going on. So it looks like they were already turned down for other things associated with this by the FCC. So I'm not sure all of what exactly that is, but it's pretty interesting.
All right. Well, great stat of the week, Andy.
Yeah.
1,000 acres of land in Council Bluffs. That's it for today's show. So I want to thank everyone for joining us online, and again, thank Delta Dental of Iowa for their support of the show. Jimmy, thanks for coming on and
Thanks for having me.
being our your first time on the show. We really appreciate that. Where should people go to find more about you online and VoterTide?
Just go to VoterTide.com.
All right, simple enough. Chris, how about you?
Well, we're nestled out in West Des Moines, so you can go to interactiveshift.com and give us a jingle and get all our information off that. And we'd love to have a conversation with you.
And I hear I've been hearing words about the Brooklyn office and how the coffee is out there.
Yeah. Our Brooklyn office has wonderful coffee and pastries. So,
Absolutely. Nate, who's been on the show before, is one of your developers out
Right.
in Brooklyn.
and
New York.
we are Shift has broken away from performance marketing now.
Tell us that news before.
Absolutely. So basically, performance marketing was our parent company. We did a year-long incubator kind of experiment where we did a sub-brand within the ad agency, and basically it was just an interactive development shop. We took everybody's strategy and built the tactics that they wanted from the strategy. And we went after different clients. We had Better Homes and Gardens, and we did 2 projects with Disney already, and some New York clients, and a lot of Midwest clients also. So it was a great success. So we decided to break away, legally from performance. Once again, we're nestled in with them. They're a great sister company. They're an internal client that provides a lot of value and a lot of work for us. So it's a really great model for us. But we're looking to grow, and provide great services, and we're working on a couple products right now. So hopefully next year we'll be talking about those.
Excellent.
Awesome. Well, we certainly want to hear about those, and congratulations. And for those watching the show that don't know, it was Interactive Shift, or it was Shift, and Performance Marketing who did all the branding and design work for us on Think Iowa. So we really appreciate that.
And
as well.
and talk about getting lift. We've had a few calls that landed us projects from doing Think Iowa. So thank you for letting us be a partner in that.
Nice. So find out more at interactiveshift.com.
Correct.
Andy, how do people find out about you?
YouMetAndy.com.
I'm at gwood.me. PrairieCast is produced by John Thompson of Evolve. Find out more about his services at dmevolve.com. For more on the show, check us out on Facebook. That's facebook.com/PrairieCast. For all the news and culture related to startups on the Silicon Prairie, go to siliconprairienews.com, and we will see you right back here next week. Thanks, everyone.